Hello there, and welcome to day 18 of Weekends Web App, the stream where we're building a web app from start to finish, all on stream. Nothing omitted. Today is, as I said, day 18. So if you're following along at home and you've got the repo checked out, you'll want to check out day 17 because that's where we finished off last time. Once you've checked out day 17, you'll be at the code right where I am right now. So, where did we finish last time? We finished off our internationalization sort of layer, which meant that we need to figure out what it is that we wanted to do next. And just looking at everything, what we have, so we don't need to technically talk to a server yet, so I don't need to worry about this sort of stuff. And this sort of stuff, the notifications, the location service, sound is not 100% necessary either for a prototyping layer. So at this point, we could potentially get started in sort of getting all our rendering ready and whatnot. But what we haven't been doing in this exploratory phase is we haven't been writing any tests. We did write a few tests in here. But this wasn't really a test, but more a way to demonstrate how it works, and that's it. Now, if we wanted to run these tests, I'm pretty sure I got around to hooking it up to here, so you can see that the tests run. And unfortunately, we haven't actually updated our tests, so we still got some issues. And that's what we really need to deal with at this point in the stage, because you can see here, none of these work, so all these tests fail, and that's no good to us. Now, before we went any further, I did do a brief amount of investigation into whether Jest would be a solution for us long term. And unfortunately, I'm coming to the conclusion that's potentially not the case. And the main reason for that is it doesn't run in the browser. It apparently can run in Puppeteer, which allows you to run it in Chrome, but it doesn't run in the browser by default, and that's a really bad thing for us. And I'll explain really quickly why that is. So we've got one test that's passing, that state test. Now let's do something with this. For instance, let's say we import. And where will we import from? We'll import from our persistence layer. And I believe, I can't remember the interface, so I'm just going to quickly check that. So we do have DB there, yep. And database storage. Okay, so we have this initialize DB function, or we have this delete DB function. Let's just go with that one because it doesn't really require us to build up much. So we pull this in, and we go database storage dot delete DB. Doesn't want the name, no matter what the name is, we'll just throw one in there. All right. Now, oops, that's not what I intended to do. Let's run the tests. So now we should probably get all tests to break. And the reason is cannot read property delete database of undefined. And unfortunately it happened outside of the, it happened as a promise. So it ended up being an issue. But say we returned this promise, maybe this promise would end up surfacing in the test. Let's try that before we go any further. All right, you can see here that the promise rejected, which sort of gave it something to hook onto. But you can see here when it cannot read property delete database of undefined, and that's it's a massive problem right here, because what it means is that for our testing layer, we can't actually get access to all of the things that are sort of provided by the browser by default. Which means it's already pretty suspect whether we'll actually be able to test things in this way, because if we can't test things from here, then we're going to run into these problems where it's like, this is all very well and good having these tests run, but does it test our platform compatibility? Can we test with Safari? Can we test with Firefox? Can we test with Edge and Chrome? Because just having Puppeteer on hand, which does Chrome, isn't enough, right? We need to be able to test in the browser. It's also nice to be able to test in Node. Like, we won't doubt that. But if all of our if we can't run our suites in the browser as well, we're only testing a very small sliver of our JavaScript, in terms of platform code at least. Once we get into our main sort of code base, it's probably going to be fine to run half of our tests in Node. But yeah, as it stands, we can't, this isn't a tenable way to be moving through our test situation. So despite the fact that we went through the effort of setting up Jest, I'm afraid we're going to have to go down the road of setting up Mocha or something like that instead. As far as I know, Mocha does run in the browser, so that's going to be my first port of call here to get around this. So that's unfortunate that it's a bit vague, but anyway, here we go. Now, so mockajs.org is the test library here. So this one's been around for a long time, and it runs on Node.js and the browser, and that's a really important part of it, is it runs on the browser too. If we didn't have Node on the browser, then we'd be running into trouble. Now, I have to figure out how to set that up as well, so that we can run it in the browser, and honestly, I think we're probably going to dedicate this stream to getting our browser testing up and running, because then we can roll on through and just set up all of our tests as we need to. So that's where we're gonna work through today. So may as well get started by looking at anything that can sort of help us get TypeScript running with that. Now I'm just gonna have a browse around. So arbitrary transpiler support is essentially the thing that will compile TypeScript files and whatnot. What we want to do is we want to get to this situation here where we've got test files and they're being run at the command line, and then we'll figure out where to go from there to where to go from there in order to get things working the way we want them to work in the browser as well. So with that all said, let's get stuck into things. We will install Mocha, and we'll need TS Node as well, by the looks of it. Yeah, maybe. All right. So let me clear this. Oops. Bad typing today. All right. So let's bring in Mocha. We need that as a development dependency. Now, Mocha as a test runner doesn't give us all of our insertions, so the complementarily named Chai is an assertion library that can be paired with the test framework. So we'll bring that in as well. Bring in Chai, and we'll have types for Mocha and types for Chai as well. Good stuff. Now, after that, we need to set up Mocha just to run first, and then we'll figure out what's broken from there. So that's what the tests look like. I'm not going to try and do the test. I'm just going to try and get it to run by collecting the tests that we needed to. So if we look at this one here, and this one here, this command here, these are probably the ones that get us pretty close to what we'd need, just with a few slight changes. Right, so let's jump into our package.json and set up our test file. So at the moment, our test file just clicks on, just looks for Jest, but instead we're going to have it look a little like this. And then we'll make some slight adjustments to make it fit. So you can see here that they've got this assumption of a test folder that's going to be the baseline, and we're not going to do that. Instead, we're just going to search for every TS file. We'll just start off with test.ts, because I believe that's what we've got, right? Test.ts, state.test.ts, and routing.test.ts, okay? So test.ts is sort of our baseline there. We also need to have something for requiring, which is a TS node. So we'll use TS node /register here and just see what happens. We might have to change that, but anyway, I'm just going to follow the instructions and just see what happens. So if we run yarn test right now, what happens? Cannot find module TS node register. Yeah. Okay, so maybe we can pull in a development dependency of TS node. Maybe that'll do it for us. Never know. What about now? Alright, so this one ran into problems just straight up because it had no exported member match path to route. I mean, I'm fine for that to crash because that's straight up is a problem, right? So let's go deal with that. So now these will be type errors. I wonder if it will still run with those type errors in place. Doesn't like them either. Okay. So we're going to break all these tests. See if these tests run. Okay, so now we've got some issues because test is not defined and then it freaks out, and that's fine because if that's the case, then we just need to fix up the Mocha files, maybe. So in terms of the declarations, the way it works, we've got this describe and then these it functions. So describe essentially creates groups for your testing, and then the it functions are your tests. It's sort of like they use a particular syntax for the way they do their tests, which what do they refer to it as? Sometimes it's referred to as behavior-driven development, I believe. I mean, there's a bunch of different ones. But anyway, they've chosen to use these particular names. Here you go. So yeah, a few different styles like behavior-driven development and all this other sort of stuff. But we're just going to follow this syntax and see if we can match it and make it work, right? So here, let's go describe. Route matcher. And then inside it we'll go it. Okay, so we'll indent all these, we'll drop down to the end, close this all out, and then just turn these into it calls. And maybe this will work for us. Now, next up, we want to update our state test. Following the same thing. So describe state. And then back to tests. Change that to it. And let's see if we've got some running code now. Hell no. This is interesting because of this window index fine. So we still have issues with those kinds of tests. No doubt about it there. But that's because we're running in this node context, and eventually we won't be running in this node context. So you can see here we've now got a bunch of bunch of failures, but the failures are a bit different because they're based on the failure that we have this expect that we never actually import. So we'll need to do just that. So we've pull in those assertions. We've got chai expect so we could do something like 2 dot equal So let's see in the expect guide. I'll just remove that expectation for now. Okay, and then we just have to deal with these ones as well. So this has these language chains for the testing, which is a bit interesting to work with. And we just need to find, so deep equal will be an interesting one. We don't want that one. What are we looking for? Just to be truthy. Huh, that's interesting. Okay. What about truthy? Let's do to exist. And let's have a look at that, see if we've got some tests that are working now. So you can see a couple that are working, these ones here. Now does this one show where I want it to show? So it gets in here and runs this test, and you can see this console log here. If we got rid of these console logs, what would it look like? This isn't too bad. So we've got things running. I just got to be right back. Got to take care of something. Once I come back though, what we're looking at, we've got some tests running, and then after that, now that we've got our tests running, I think the next step is to get this running in the browser. Because once we've got it running in the browser, then we can properly test out our platform layer. Because without that, even things like our localization layer, I mean, any of the bits that depend on INTL, the internationalization thing, I don't know if that's in Node. I'll wager that it's probably not, right? So if we're going to depend on browser APIs, we're sort of going to depend on, browser points. Anyway, I'll be right back, and then we'll get back into it. Okie dokie. So we have dealt with the test problem, and now we need to look into the running the tests in the browser problem. So let's take a look at how it's suggested we do it, and then we'll figure out how we can do it, because they might not entirely match up. All it says here is Mocha runs in the browser. Every release of Mocha will have new builds of Mocha.js and Mocha.css. Now let's take a little read of here. You can see got this little setup function, and then check leaks, grab globals, and then run the whole lot. And I can see here that it's grabbing the various tests. What I'm going to do is really quickly see if we can use Webpack to run Mocha. So here we go into the wonderful world of JavaScript ecosystem stuff, where we're just trying to figure out whether it is that we can actually do what we need to do. Because even though this is a Mocha test runner with integrated Webpack precompiler, this is possibly not at all what we want, because it doesn't necessarily put things in the browser for us, and that's actually what we want. So let's back out of that one. See if Google can help us here. Yeah, I'm out. It's no good for us. We can't do that. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to pick up, try and see if we can set up a build with Mocha, and see if we can make that little package work for us. So let's do just that. Let's take a quick look at how everything is laid out. Right, so what we will need to do, so we've already got some code, like if we were to run up Gulp right now, we've already got some code that builds our code into a Webpack, right? It doesn't always work perfectly, but it does what it needs to do. Might as well fix that type error while we're here, since we are in the process of cleaning up right now. There we go. So we've got our view params, and in fact, we actually know that one. It's always going to be a key of string to string. So we know the type of that. So now we've fixed that type, we've got everything building, that's all hunky-dory. And what we want to do is we want to carry on with this Webpack concept, except now what we're going to build is some sort of little module that's going to be our sort of our testing framework. And like the testing page isn't going to be the main one that's running. And like this does bring to mind something I wanted to sort of talk about. See, all of this usage here, this would be called testing, right? Like we're testing it in situ, and that'll cut it when you're being exploratory, but sometimes you need your test code to exist somewhere else, right? You need your test code to properly exercise everything to exist somewhere other than the app. Because eventually, obviously, I've got to delete all this stuff, and then we'll have code that technically is meant to be able to do something, but that we can't see that. We can't actually observe it while we're using the app. And functionality like that will eventually break. You'll make a mistake, something will happen. Doesn't matter what that something is, but it probably will happen, right? So in order to counteract that, you need to have some way to deal with all of these cases and present them. So that's what we need this browser testing for. And how are we going to get it? We're going to figure out how to run this in the browser, and in order to do that, we need to have some sort of module, some sort of page that we can visit that will run these tests. So what we'll be looking to do is, I'm a bit scatterbrained at the moment, we're going to jump into scripts. And here, where we've got this Webpack config, we're going to add a second Webpack config, which will allow us to run the tests. So I'm going to make a file called test runner, which is going to be our root. And that's going to be the one that's in charge of essentially collecting all the tests and hopefully running them in a reasonable way. We'll see whether that actually happens, but we'll start with that as a concept, right? So in order to do that, we're going to need more than one config. So we'll do just that, and we'll put this one in a mode of development as well. In fact, most of these properties will carry on. Some of them won't, but most of these properties will carry on in maybe the module rules. Only a few of them actually. So let's establish what our common rules are. So our common config is going to be resolve and module for sure. Oopsie daisy. And maybe plugins eventually, but actually this plugin, we won't use the bundle analyzer plugin for Mocha because we don't actually care how big our bundle is for Mocha. It can be as big as it likes because it's only for testing. And then with that common config, we can use that we can use object assign to sort of pre-fill our blank object, and then we can override it. So if you remember my explanation of assign, you've got the blank object, we're going to put all of the elements of common config into that blank object, and then we override it finally with the final layer of config. Alright, so what we're going to go through here, we've got client source, we're going to target test runner instead. That's what we called it, test runner. And then the output for it is going to be just test.js is fine. And build web assets is fine as well. We can do that. We'll get rid of the plugin. We do not need that, as stated previously. Alright, now let me see if I've made a mistake anywhere. Maybe, maybe not. This looks fine. Let's try and run it, see what happens. I did something wrong. What is that something? Ah, yes, I didn't close off object assign here. And I didn't close off the list. And I didn't close off this one either. Let's fix up this indentation so it's a little nicer. There we go. And this might get a bit unwieldy if we start using more and more of these, but this will do for now. All right. Can't resolve name test runner in Weekends web app. Have I not saved it yet? Okay, so we've got test.js, and that's been built, and we've got yeah, okay, we've got everything we need here. Now we need a container. So luckily, we've already got the concept of containers here. So potentially we just need to write ourselves a tests container and we're good to go. So let's go client.tests tests.pug. And we're going to follow along. We'll just have test.js at the bottom here. need the CSS. Okie dokie. So if I go to tests, now this is a slight problem because you will recall that when we built this, we made it so that the web server returns no matter what index.html. Oh, actually, maybe because it's a fallback, maybe we would be fine if we go test.html. Yes, yeah. Okay, excellent. So you can see here, I go to test.html, and because it found test.html, we are now on this page. And if we inspect, we'll see that console log. Now, I'm not entirely sure this will work for us, but I guess we've got to try, don't we? So we've got to set up Mocha, and then we've got to run Mocha. That basically is it. And we also need to pull in all of these various files. Now, luckily, Webpack has a concept of a dynamic import. And this is going to come very much in handy because it means that we can create a context. I'm not sure the right words for how you're meant to use this are. I'm just going to bring up a reference off screen just to make sure I'm doing it right. But yeah, they allow you to create a context so you can dynamically pull in files from a range of sources, and it'll go ahead and scan it all and pack in everything that it needs to. So it's pretty handy stuff, and it's what we're going to be leaning on in order to get all of the things that we want. So let's have a poke in our test runner. And I'll bring up some documentation for this one as well. So we got Webpack require context is the concept. So here you got this ability to create a context, and you can even use a regex to make sure you get files of a particular shape. Well, this looks great, doesn't it? It looks like exactly what we want. So how about we give that a try, right? We go const we'll go test context, and TypeScript isn't going to like it when we do this stuff, but Webpack will know what to do with it once it gets through. So we're going to create a context, and that's going to come from this folder. We want it to sort of scan around and see what it can find. What's that? Use subdirectories. We absolutely want to use subdirectories. So go hog wild finding subdirectories. And then we want you to find .test, .ts. Yep. Okay. So once we've got the context, let's just run it, and we'll just have a look at what we actually get when we do this. So you can see here, it did something recursively and grabbed a whole bunch of stuff. So it grabbed routing.test.ts, state.test.ts, and you can see it also grabbed things that it needed, like chai and whatnot. So it grabbed state.test, and as a consequence, it also grabbed state.index, state/index.ts. So I mean, that's looking kind of like what we want, right? If we were to reload here, okay, you can see this context here. Didn't like me doing that. Okay, it comes back as a function. There's actually stuff inside of it. So if we were to grab the keys from it, you can see we've got routing.test.ts and state.test.ts. So theoretically, that's everything we need to do test collection. And what we'll be looking to do is probably set up Mocha, and then, so you can see here we've got this mocha.setup, and then after that we have to require all of these items in the context, and then after that we should just be able to run these three and then kick on through our process. So that's what I'm going to try and do. So we've got to import Mocha, that's for sure. Mocha has no default export. What about this? You got that? No, you don't. All right, I'm gonna have to check the types for Mocha. So let's do just that. What could you give me? There's a lot of types in there. Declare, const mocha, browser mocha. That is the default. That's what you're doing right there. It's confusing. Makes no sense. I have this feeling they might not have the types for Mocha might not be fully well founded. That or I'm just not getting it. Mocha 5.2. All right. Oh. What about that? There's no... All right, we'll have to do star as. That'll do. Okay. Oh yeah, this will work. Okay. So we've got Mocha, and then we've got setup, BDD, behavior-driven development. We will then iterate over all of these and require them. And what we can do in order to do that is we can grab all the keys for each on it. Has implicitly in any type because it doesn't know about this sort of thing, but I know that it's going to give me a strict key, so I can do this. And we need to run the function. So test context key. All right, we good. So now that we've got these test context, tests context, this is playing hell with my Lisp. Now that we've done that, we should be able to go mocha.check leaks. And this is an interesting one because that's only attached to browser Mocha. Declare const Mocha. That's an interesting one. So is it like I can just do this? All right, maybe. Okay, we'll see. I might have to put Mocha into this to make this work. Let's do it without check leaks just for now. We'll eventually have to do that, and then do mocha.run. Just see what happens. That's all we gotta do. Where am I? Let's put this one out the front. Okay. File system. Interesting. Why does it need to call Mecta P? Okay, because we're not in browser Mocha. Right. So we need to use the browser build of Mocha. So there is a slight hiccup in this. So this requires me to take just another look around. We are unfortunately in the weeds. I am apologizing for that, but that is, again, the nature of the ecosystem. Sometimes we've just got to go in the weeds. All right, where's Mocha? We've got mocha.js here and mocha.css here. So potentially, we just bring them in. Yeah, let's do that. So import Mocha from, or maybe we can go const mocha equals require mocha.js. That's a browser-friendly version right there, I tell ya. And maybe we get a type of browser mocha here. Yeah, I don't know if I'll get the type. I'm just gonna do any. I'm kind of cool with it. Because we got the type, I've got to do that. Let's see how that works. This will probably run into troubles too. I just done crashed the browser by the looks of it. Oh, of course, I accidentally closed it. My bad. All right. Now, Webpack might not appreciate that. It seemed to do it all right. And it seemed to pull it in all right. You can see that there. Mocha browser setup is not a function. Okay. Well, how about we just do it this way? Because hopefully we've got ourselves a global sort of... When we run all of this, we should have a global in hand. Yes, we do. Mocha div adding, add it missing, add it to your document. Okay, so we're getting closer and closer. So we need this div ID mocha. Ta-da! That's doing all right. Okay, we've got some failures, and that's all good. Back it off there. Can use these to choose to just run tests in a particular setting, which is really nice. So yeah, great. Let's get the CSS in there. Right. Okay, so we've got this this fella here, and then we output it somewhere else. Now let's see if we can add our Mocha CSS. So it's sort of a, like, we can just pipe it through the same thing, mainly because CSS less is a superset of CSS. So CSS should just run if we put it into less like this. If we go node modules, where is it? It's node modules / Mocha. I'll just do this so I can remind myself. Mocha.css. Alright. So when we do that, it doesn't tell me much about the files that went in there, but hopefully inside build web, we've got assets and we've got mocha.css, and that looks right about there. That's good. So now we just need to make the same change here. So I'll just go to app index.pug, copy over this, put it in the head, and just change this app.css to mocha.css. We are good to go. Isn't that nice? And what we could do even more, we could add our own styling to this thing up the top here. We won't bother to do that until we've actually got the branding for the web app or anything like that. But so we've got ourselves a nice little room to work in, and the best thing about it is we should be able to run tests on our database layer now. So if we jumped into a route matcher, routing.test.ts, we should be able to import database storage safely. And then run database storage dot delete db without drama. We've got a global leak detected. Live reload. I got over it. Maybe not. Anyway. You can see that it's not failing on this at any rate. It's not failing on this test here. This parameter-free routes, it's completely fine with it. It's all good. And that's what we're after. We're after it to be working in a particular way. So we've got ourselves some progress here. Now that we've got it running, we may as well start in that whole testing thing, right? So let's start smashing out a few simple tests. I'm going to get this off the screen now because we don't need to be able to see it anymore. And we're going to start looking at our localization layer because that's sort of the first sort of thing that sort of brought up the mind of like, hey, we should probably be testing this stuff, right? And you can certainly see all of the tests if we go into home.js. Well, not home.js. We don't have these in separate files yet. But you can see all of these formats, running on this particular space here. So we won't split these up into different files yet or anything like that. We'll jump into client /platform/localize and then just make a localize .test.ts. And again, we want to bring in, and we're going to describe. So we're describing the localized context. And then on top of that, this hasn't picked anything up just yet. That's all good. Global leak detected. Should probably turn that off until I know what it's doing. All right, yeah, so I'm just putting a lot to do down that probably will never get done. But anyway, let's grab all of these formats. I'm going to put them in, pull them out of here, put them in comments, and then pull them apart piece by piece. This should mean that we can get rid of most of this stuff, except for format date, which we are currently using. Okay, we also need to create a localized context in here, so just remind myself of the usage code for that particular concept. So we don't actually have to provide the translations. It should be fine without the translations. It won't freak out. So we want to create a create an English context. We'll import localized context from index.ts. So new localized context. We'll go en, and then we'll just throw that in there. I mean, eventually we'll test new new locales, but for the moment I'm just happy with checking English and just calling it a day from there. The unfortunate thing is see, if we just do this, we're not actually going to have the whole story, because even our numeric formatting does rely on this just a little bit. So maybe we do need to have our en here. And what I might do, just to acknowledge the fact that like this client locales, see, this comes outside of the platform layer, okay? So the platform layer and its tests probably shouldn't depend on it. So what we will do instead is we will create ourselves a file. We'll call it client platform localize test locale.json. and we'll pretty much pull out just this. And this is good because, I mean, we can get rid of the home page, the about page, because this literally only needs the stuff that is required for the test locale, right? So now we can go const test locale, test en locale equals require test locale.json, and we can attach that to en, and we've got ourselves a properly populated localized context. And now we can get to the testing. So if we were going to pull apart this localized context, we would expect en context dot format number we would expect this to equal something else. So formatted equals this, and then we can expect formatted to dot equal, let's just do something dumb just to start off with, just to make sure our tests run. Uncaught assertion. I didn't like that. I wonder if we check leaks, will it get us past that? Yeah. So for some reason it's over here. Maybe we do need check leaks just to have things behaving, and we'll just deal with the fact that there's that whole that live reload pickup. So what are we gonna do? What are we doing? Test run. I'm just going to not care about the fact that live reload picks up until it starts to bug me too much. Now, here we've got a problem. Maybe it's because I got to do it on the inside. And this is one of the things about this concept, is usually it wants you to try and localize this stuff. But this should be showing up as an error, and we need to figure out why that is. Otherwise, this is going to continue to be an issue. Yeah. Init immediate is false. Do we run on a promise on the other one? Let's have a look here in localized context. So immediate is false. If we change that to true, what would happen? Doesn't change a thing. Okay. And if we reload like this, apparently the test runs fine. But it doesn't actually show up here. Oh, of course. Oh, of course. So, again, this is just because I haven't written too many tests with Mocha lately, but we actually need to put in what we're doing. All right, now we're cooking with gas. So we've got ourselves a start. We've got our number format, and it doesn't know what it's trying to do, and that's all cool. We'll turn off check leaks because that wasn't actually what was causing the problem. It was just my stupidity. Trucking along. All right, here we go. So we've got something that doesn't equal something. Well, we're happy that this code works, so I'm just going to run in this simple context, this simple answer here, and get this one running. Now, the thing about this localized context is we're going to reuse it an awful lot. So rather than doing it for every single test, so like this would start to get pretty repetitive, right? Do this every single time, right? Because we'd have to keep on doing it. We'd have all our lines there, and if ever we change the API, suddenly we have to do an awful lot of work to get it all back into conformance, right? So we want to do something different. So you can see here the storage formatting broke, so you can see our tests are starting to come into shape. But what we would probably want to do is have some sort of before running. So again, let me remind myself with the old mocker. How to run tests, or how to do something before every test. Where does it talk about it? It's not what I want. Hooks. There we go. Before. Okay. So if we do this one, and then before this test, we can do an arrow function. It's not a big deal. We can create the localization context, and that should be sufficient to keep us running there. Cannot read format number or something. Oh, we made a const here. We need to assign the const. That's better. There we go. And we can pull this require up to the top because it never changes. Alrighty. So now we've got our storage formatting. We've got a whole range of storage sizes. For the moment, yeah, it's not going to be a huge deal for me to format all these ones. So what I might do is just alias this function really short. So we'll go const f equals n context dot format storage size, because we do know that we can do that. And then make this a lot shorter. So 103.021.98.321. Make that F. Again, we'll just see what the answer is because we're fairly confident of our results here. You got to start somewhere with your testing layer, unfortunately. And we'll just work through the rest of these. Get rid of you. Alright, so since we've hit the hour mark, I'm just going to basically burn through all of this test writing. It is not the most entertaining of things to watch, but it is, again, a thing that we need to do. I'll just make that a blank string for now and have a look at what it breaks down on. So we'll run that, and we should expect it to reach that point. So 10161, because that's full reduce. So it does reduce, but it has the full name of the text. So we got that there. And 1001.kb. Oh, not .kb. There we go. And then the last one should be 12 bytes, 12b. Okay. All right, next up, currency formatting. So with currency formatting, again, we want to grab the same function. We've got 3 results there. We need to trim them all down. This is probably worth creating a macro for, so I'll do my best here. What QA? All right. Change to F. Import, export, expect, escape. Then we're gonna find this and then change from here on. So it's gonna be dirt.to equal okay. So that's just that's a text editor thing. If you can record a macro that has all of those actions, then you can eventually get something. And if I had gone to the new line as well, I would have saved that keystroke as well. But either way, that gets us sort of where we need to be so that then we can run these tests. So we've got currency in the thousands. And that's interesting because this is an Australian localization, and this is what that's what it's done with the EN localization for Australian dollars, which is kind of interesting. Those are both identical. Okay, yeah, and that one's different. And this one should be 1K or 1 point something K? 1.30K. Okay. Ah, yeah, that's right. Because we left this one at a certain level of detail that we didn't want to do anymore. What we might do is just exercise the code a little bit more. So we'll let it reduce a little bit more. So we've got thousands as an option, but we don't have anything else. So what we'll do instead is we'll allow it to abbreviation auto. Just so that we can start to get some exercising of the code, because otherwise we're not really doing a whole lot of code exercising. So you can see here the millions. Sorry, it might actually be really small, but the millions just there. And finally, format percentage. This one I might not bother with copy and paste because there's really no need. I can do this, and then I can take a stab at this one. It's probably 20%, but if it's not that, then I'll eat my words and change it. And we've got percentage formatting good to go. All right, so this is good because this code, I'm pretty sure it won't work in Node. Okay, so INTL must be available to Node. Okay, but that's fine. But like IndexedDB is not, for example. So even though we don't have a need of doing this browser testing here, you got to remember that this testing is great because I can put it through Firefox and it will still work. I can put it through Safari and it will still work. So I've got that whole coverage testing that we sort of need because this is good for I need to run it quick, off we go, but it's not good for pretty much anything else, right? Now, if I have a look at localized context, it looks like I've got a console log in there that I don't need. Where did all this come from? Right here. Language changed, EN. Oh, it's default logging. All right, because debug is true. So if we get rid of that, yeah, that quieted it down. Very good. Okay, so we're at just over an hour, so that pretty much closes out the stream for here. yeah, I think this has been a pretty productive day. We've got ourselves a test framework now that we can sort of use into the foreseeable future. Just to give a taster of like this isn't it for testing necessarily, because eventually we'll need to do some visual testing, and possibly that will involve using something like Selenium or maybe Cypress, which is sort of the new hotness out there, which is a sort of in the browser testing. And this is sort of when you start clicking around and all that sort of thing. But we're not at that realm of testing yet. We're not building UI yet. We will be soon. And testing is one of those things. It's never really done, but we need to gravitate towards something that can be used in enough circumstances that we can feel like we can depend on it. So yeah, I feel like we've made some good steps in that direction today. All right, so what did we do today for our commit message? Did I actually do that right? Yes, I did. Okay. So what do we do today? Today is day 18, and we changed testing to Mocha using change testing to Mocha, added Webpack build for in-browser testing. We also did some things that went along with that. Hang on, let me put that back up there. So we did some things that went along with that. We added localized context number formatting tests. And yeah, that was the main one there. And I think that's pretty much it. I'm just going to add one thing to this. So these jest files, we no longer need them, no longer want them. They're not in our interests. And I don't have to make a new commit for this. I can amend the commit. And now we're good to go. Very good. All right. So if I tag it as day 18, I'll push the code and then push the tags. Now we'll call it for today. As usual, if you want to follow along, you can always grab the code at github.com/weareoffcider/weekendswebapp. And you'll find that code that we've just done is committed right here. Good to go. As for the rest of the week, it's a little spotty when I'll be able to stream again. I'm hoping, if I find the time late tomorrow night and late Thursday night, I'll do it. But unfortunately, just due to some family commitments, it's a little harder to get my streams out for tomorrow and Thursday. So we'll see how we go. I'm not going to be able to commit to a time, so I'll just stream when I stream. And if you don't catch it, you'll find it on YouTube. That's pretty much it from me. Thanks for watching, as per usual. We'll see you next time.